Hi guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another retro RPG. And at the end of another week and the end of another poll, we've got a very clear winner with Cybergeneration by a full 10%. Now as usual, I'll be back at the end of the video with some other channel related stuff and some other stuff about the poll. But just a wee reminder that if you'd like to help the channel out, or you'd just like to see these videos a week early, then we've got a Patreon link to in the notes down below, so we'd love it if you check that out. But anyway, let's have a look at Cybergeneration. So, this is Cybergeneration. Now this is the second edition, which came out in 1995. The first edition was just a source book for Cyberpunk 2020. Now, I think this is definitely improved by being its own thing, by being a standalone game. It really sets up a completely different tone to Cyberpunk, which is incredibly good, because when I first heard about this, I thought it was just another attempt to take Cyberpunk into the future, because we'd had the original edition of Cyberpunk, which came out and was set in 2013, and then we had Cyberpunk 2020, obviously set in the year 2020, and in the years since we've had Cyberpunk 3.0 and we've had Cyberpunk Red, both of which jumped the timeline forward and further. And I kind of thought that's what Cybergeneration was. I thought it was just taking the tech a bit further forward and taking the timeline forward. Because the cover here, you can see the people have sort of integrated weapons and things. They seem to be casting some kind of magic. It looks very, very different to how Cyberpunk was. And I just assumed the technology's evolved. No, the tone is completely different. You see, in the timeline, the situation has completely changed. Cyberpunks were fighting against corporations, they were trying to earn money, they were rebels without a cause. Cybergeneration puts the cause in. A plague has been released, the carbon plague, which has radically different effects. If you're over the age of 20 and you catch the carbon plague, you're dead. If you're younger, then you stand a better chance of surviving, but you also stand a small chance of developing nanotechnical abilities. Totally advanced cybernetic features within your body. You end up with nano factories inside you which allow you to do radically different things. Because you are now also a carrier, the government wants to herd you up. The corporations have taken over the government because of the threat of this plague, and they have started cutting down on the amount of weapons, they have started gathering people up who are infected and are infecting other people, and you play one of these cyber-evolved people who are rebels. But you've got a cause this time. You're fighting the government, you're fighting for freedom. But let's have a look at the back cover. My parents were cyberpunks, and all they left me was this dark future. 2027. The cyberpunk movement is dead, crushed beneath the jackboots of the Incorporated States of America, a tyrannical techno-government that rules through media, money, and unstoppable cybernetic might. But a new force has taken to the street to carry on the battle their parents lost. Raised on danger and deception, forged in the fires of a mysterious nanotech plague that has ravaged the 21st century, this handful of angry juvegangers now wield incredible powers that defy both science and cybertech. They are the Cybergeneration. The ISA wants them under its thumb, or dead. But these kids have other plans, and they know that the real revolution has just begun. The second edition of Cybergeneration is a complete role-playing game in the cyberpunk tradition, featuring 13 Yogang character roles, including Go-Gangers, Mega-Violence, Street Fighters, and Eco-Raiders, amazing nanotech abilities and powers, Edgerunner character roles to chaperone the cyber-evolved, a complete net running and combat system, a guide to the 21st century weapons, netware, and street tech, the adversaries and allies of a corporate-controlled America, background on the new nation under the corporate rule, more role-playing action. So, the players, on the whole, will be playing young characters, maybe as young as 12, but into their teenage, who have gained these abilities. Or you can be playing an Edgerunner, you can be playing a cyberpunk character who has survived, and now you've got a cause. You always were a rebel, but now you're a rebel with a cause. We start off. The presentation is absolutely lovely. DTP by this point was very nice, and we go in with a cartoon strip, a comic strip, detailing the release of the virus. And then we start going through. So it talks through the history about this book, because the book is formatted slightly oddly, in that it's trying to take you into your first adventure. Part of it for Games Master, and part of it's for the players, to take you into role-playing through the book very quickly. We've got an interlude. If you're the referee, don't read this out loud. Then we've got sort of background on different characters. Its layout is somewhat reminiscent of Cyberpunk Red, with the hypertext and links to them, telling you what pages to go to. It's not done as well as Cyberpunk Red. They definitely learnt from this, but I do like what they were attempting. But we've got the children of Generation X. So the children of the Edgerunners from Cyberpunk are very different, because the nuclear family is no longer a thing. Lots of people have died. Civilization has crumbled, basically. So kids are in gangs, and your player character will be from one of these gangs. So the youth gangs, the yo gangs. We've got Runners, basically kids brought up in the massive arcologies. They manage to sort of tunnel through the guts of it. They know their way around. They can disappear into it. You know, tunneling, don't live in the arcos, live through them. We've got beaver brats. So, well-to-do people. People who are the children of people who are doing pretty well. Board punks. So, they're too young to be in a biker gang, pretty much. So, they have flying skateboards. Eco-raiders, people who have decided to protect the earth. Face dancers, so people who can change their appearance, taking up different roles. Glitter kids, so basically child rockers. Go-gangers, so these are the biker gangs. Now, I thought this looked very much like the Akira bike, Canada's bike out of Akira, but we shall come back to that in a few pages. We've got golden kids, so the kids of the extremely rich. Goths, who are goths. I was a little disappointed with that one. Guardians, kids who have taken it upon themselves to protect, you know, the guardian angels in New York gang which protected people on the subways. Got mall brats, so kids that know how to run around the malls, steal from shops. They are the fixers, the people who get all the resources in your gang. The mega violence, people who just dwell on fighting. Rads, who want to overthrow the government. They're the radicals. They have the special ability to organise. We've got squats, people who squat. They're basically homeless. We've got street fighters, so kids who are learning the ability to fight, taking on some kind of samurai or ninja role. Tinker tots, so the technicians. They experiment on technology and create odd gadgets. We've got tribals, who are tribals. I don't know how to put it a different way. They are very similar to Native Americans. We've got vidiots, so the medias of this new generation. We go then on to testing the edge. So we go through the rules here, what skills are, how they work. Lists all the Yogang skills you get. Got the summary of character creation. Reconnaissance. So, information, some very nice pictures here about the sort of equipment and that used in the world. Image and sound. Clothing. Road tech, including the Akira cyber bike. As I said, I thought it looked like a rip-off of the bike out of Akira, and they've even named it so. Cheeky. Different technical things, the cyberdecks, body shop, black market weapons. It makes a big point that since the corporations took over the government, they have heavily restricted weapons, because this is a much less lethal version of cyberpunk. As it mentions, as a sort of 12 or 13-year-old going up against security guards, if you're going in there with heavy weapons, you're probably going to get wiped out. You're taking a shotgun or an assault rifle into a drone fight. They're going to blow you up. They're going to use missiles, they're going to use far superior forces. So what you're trying to do is humiliate the government. You're not trying to kill too many people. You're trying to reveal their secrets. You're trying to break in. You're trying to cause their projects to go wrong so they lose face. We've got new tech 2027, so cybernetics, transportation, weapons, digital media. Then we're on to the section about the net. We've got the time of the fire. So now we go into the details about the carbon plague. Because as well as choosing the gang that you're from, you also get to choose what the carbon plague has done to you. So we've got the Tin Men. Basically, they can shape their bodies. There's an example of a Tin Man. They can create their hands into blades. They can create their armor over their skin. We've got alchemists who can manipulate matter. So by laying a hand on something, they can turn a solid object to liquid. But also they can turn a liquid to solid. We've got wizards who are net runners, but they don't need cyberdecks. They can directly interface with technology. We've got scanners. They have the ability to convert very weak electrical impulses into meaningful data. We've got bolters, who have the ability to fire long metal wires of supercarbon up to 100 meters and charge those wires with megavolt shocks. Then we've got sort of detailing what their abilities do. So hexite shaping, and the different things they can do. Create tendrils out of their arm, create sheets of armor, extend their limbs. The alchemists, who can change matter, disassemble or reshape it. Body stat effects on change rates and recovery. Transformation descriptions. The scanners. They can read emotions, surface intents, subvocalization. The bolters, the bolt throwing difficulty and the maximum charge they can do. The wizards, they can talk to a computer, they can get it to do things, they can get it to do a favor, break its programming, or just forget about you. So we've got familiars, which the wizards create. Then we're on to Chapter 6, Heavy Metal Warriors, which is the combat section. How to spend experience, how to use different weapons, how armor works, how to heal. Different software programs for using when hacking. Code slingers and code guns, virtuality combat. Cybergeneration itself, it talks about the differences between playing a grown-up character and a child. Notes on being a juve. They've got confidence, they're impulsive, they've got passions. They are interested in sex even if they don't really understand it. We've got a guide to running Cybergeneration. This is not your father's cyberpunk. Teenagers are young and confused. It's the people's stupid rules for running Cybergeneration. It's all about people. It's not supposed to be about technology anymore. It's more about the effects that technology has on people. Because the people have become technology. We've got plot paths, how to weave the stories. Then we've got information on the Incorporated States of America, the ISA, with its history going through to the current day. Got information about the government, the New America, corp zones, under the shadow of the Bureau of Relocation, law and order. And we've got the detail of the corporations which still operate. how America very much broke away from the international corporations. A time and place, Night City 2027, so detailing Night City. Now this map looks identical to the one in the Night City sourcebook for Cyberpunk. I would have liked them to have updated it slightly, but at a glance it looks absolutely identical. But it's a nice map. Revolution. So talking about the cyber revolution, what they want to do. You know, broadcasting news, handling information, sabotage, reclaim. You know, these aren't going out and gunning people down, they're just trying to have an effect on the government in other ways. Then we've got the cyberpunks. So we've got Alt Cunningham, who is a major character in Cyberpunk 2077 video game, detailing how she's come into the cyber generation. Mr. John Silverhand. This isn't Johnny Silverhand, this is a clone of him. But he's sworn to help the kids, basically. Morgan Blackhand. Raish Bartmoss. All these names are familiar if you're familiar with Cyberpunk at all. It goes through creating a cyberpunk under these rules. You know, Netrunners, techies and their abilities, media rocker boys. Cyberware, the gift that keeps on giving. Go through all the different cyberware, but a lot of it's restricted. So it details which ones are more difficult to get. And it's got the Edgerunner life path, so how to create the character in that. The Edgerunner character sheet. Then we go into the adversaries, so who's after you? The Domestic Security Agency, Arasaka, the Bureau of Relocation, Center for Disease Control, because you are basically a contagious disease carrier. Corpsec, the cops, the military, the Edge, Final Quarantine, a parents group, Plague Survivors Alliance, different adversary types, with character sheets and templates. And then we've got some of the major NPCs. And a conversion guide from taking things from Cyberpunk 2020 to Cybergeneration. And it finished off with Eden Dream, because Eden Dream is the kind of gathering of all the old cybertechs, of Alt Cunningham, of Johnny Silverhand, how they are trying to help the kids survive the government trying to kill them for the disease they carry. But it's a really interesting spin on Cyberpunk world, making it far less lethal, changing the tone of it because you're just playing a kid. It's a really interesting idea. I'm very impressed by the way they took this completely away from Cyberpunk while keeping the world the same. So that was Cybergeneration, and that won the poll with a full 31% of the vote. 10 points ahead of Spycraft, which came second on 21, with the other games getting obviously far less than that. But we're back to going over my games shelf by shelf. So we're onto the shelf directly behind my head here. So I've put in the poll this week, Dungeons & Dragons Set 3, the Companions Rules. I've covered the basic set and the expert set before, so I think it'd be interesting to continue through and see how each box continued to extend Dungeons & Dragons as we went through the BECMI. I've also put the Judge Dredd Companion. Now I've briefly covered this when I covered the Judge Dredd role-playing game. I also had a look at the companion set, but that was maybe 2 minutes, and it's definitely worthwhile of a longer look. The Alternity Games Master's Guide. Now, Alternity is fairly new to my collection. I actually bought it while I've been doing these videos and was so impressed that I went out and got the Player's Handbook and the Games Master's Guide. So I'd like to have a look through that, and we can see how that continues to extend a very interesting game. We've got the Ship Construction Manual for the Star Trek role-playing game from Faza. We've covered a couple of the ship recognition manuals, but this is the one to actually build ships. And finally, we've got Secrets of the Caesar Run for West End Games Star Wars. Now, this is an extension of Shadows of the Empire and has work in it by Pablo Hidalgo, who now works for Lucasfilm. He's their continuity master, the guy who tells them how everything should be laid out properly in Star Wars, keeping all the continuity right. He's a real fanboy, and he comes from the Star Wars role-playing game. He's one of us. So I'd kind of like to look at that. I'm also very confused because all my Star Wars stuff is on the bottom shelf down here, and I'm doing the shelf up here. I don't know how it got there. So it's totally out of place. I'll put it in the right place once I've done it, but we'll see if it wins. Anyway, on other channel-related stuff, I'm not much. I've actually had a really bad flu. You possibly can hear it in my voice. The past week, I spent three and a half days bedridden, absolutely out of it. Fevers, shivers, unable to walk beyond much of a hobble. So I haven't been able to do much. My voice is still very husky, so speaking for long periods doesn't work. So even though I'd intended to do a live stream this Thursday, I may knock it back by a week to let myself recover a bit more. So we'll see how that works, but I'll only be delaying it by a week. Otherwise than that, I've nothing much, so I think I've whittled on for quite long enough. So thank you very, very much for watching. But most of all, as always, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.